Chapter 1. Suspicion in the Air. Jake Thompson lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling as the digital clock on the bedside table read 2:30 a.m. His wife, Lisa, slept soundly beside him, her rhythmic breathing the only sound in the room. He turned his head to watch her, a pang of guilt and worry gnawing at his insides. He hadn't disturbed her this time, nor had he been talking in his sleep, which was a small mercy. The recurring nightmare he'd been having, a hazy recollection of events from 2 years ago, seemed to be fading, though it still haunted him occasionally. In the dream, he sat at his study desk with a half-empty bottle of bourbon, an empty glass, and a revolver. He would pour a glass, gulp it down without tasting, and check the loaded cylinder, contemplating ending it all. But in reality, the details were different. There was a bottle of bourbon, but he was on the living room sofa. There was no gun, he didn't own one. He never made any threats. He just got very drunk and passed out. The dream felt disturbingly real, but thankfully it had become less frequent. To understand how Jake found himself in this state, we need to go back 2 years. In 2010, everything began to spiral downhill. Jake and Lisa had been battling city inspectors over their Home S design until an engineer finally approved their blueprints. Even then, they struggled with the contractor to stay on schedule until they moved in August. Meanwhile, their careers kept them both busy. Jake Thompson, 32, worked for Independent Investigations Corporation (IIC) in Indianapolis, investigating fraud for large insurance companies. As a lead investigator, he chose and assigned cases, making his work profitable. With some gray in his dark brown hair, standing 6'2" tall and weighing 185 pounds, he was often described as confident, with average features and a slightly crooked nose from a college boxing match. Lisa, 31, with her dark brown hair and blue-green eyes, managed the accounting department at Thompson Davis Hill TDH, overseeing 20 accountants. TDH specialized in mergers and acquisitions, and despite early 2010 bringing issues to their Indianapolis office, Lisa's career seemed promising. In February, Tom Harris became the new manager of the Indianapolis TDH office, replacing the previous one. Tom, about 5'5" and slightly overweight, was likable and admired by Lisa. Alongside Tom was VP Mike Brooks, transferred from New York, a fit and friendly man in his mid-40s with gray hair and a wandering eye, which made Jake wary despite Mike's professional reputation. By summer, the house construction was on track, and the TDH office disruptions had settled. Lisa credited Mike with the business improvements. They moved into their new home outside Indianapolis in early August, excited about the fresh start. On moving day, Jake joked about making love in every room, and Lisa playfully led him to the kitchen where they shared an intimate moment. Though their busy lives often limited them to the bedroom, they maintained their connection, finding time for each other despite their hectic schedules. One night, while they were making love, Jake brought up the idea of starting a family. They had discussed it before, and Lisa had previously mentioned wanting to start trying in the fall so they could have a baby in the summer. "I think it is time you stop taking your birth control pills and we start trying to get you pregnant," Jake suggested. "I think we should wait a little longer," Lisa replied. "Tom suggested I wait until next year. He said I might be up for a promotion by the end of the year, so I want to wait until after that." "Tom?" Jake asked, surprised. "Since when are you on a first-name basis with corporate vice presidents?" "We're pretty casual around the office," she explained. "Why did you discuss our family plans with him?" Jake questioned, feeling a bit irritated about her sharing their personal matters with her boss. "He asked if we were planning to have children, so I told him we planned to start in the fall. That's when he suggested I wait until next year." Though Jake wasn't thrilled about it, he agreed to wait until January. As the year ended, they were both swamped with work, leaving little time for each other. Weekends were meant to be special, but work often interfered. Lisa's department at TDH was busy with a major merger contract, while Jake managed 3 investigations needing closure by year-end. On the last weekend of November, they both had time off and did their Christmas shopping. Over dinner, Lisa shared good news. "We're likely to close a deal with National Pharmaceutical by December 20th, which means I should get my promotion," she said. That's fantastic. Then we can start trying for a baby. How about tonight? Jake suggested. Not tonight. I am still on the pill, and I want to settle into my new job first. And Dawn, to tell anyone about this, it could jeopardize the deal, she explained. Though disappointed, Jake understood. You know I wanted to say anything, he assured her. December was known for company Christmas parties, and both their companies had theirs. IIC's party on December 6th was a standard event with drinks, appetizers, dinner, and dancing, but it wasn't very lively. Most IIC employees were field investigators who didn't know each other well. Jake's only close friend there was Dan Riley, with whom he had worked on many cases. The rest of the team were just acquaintances, unlike Lisa's close-knit group at TDH. At the party, Jake and Lisa sat with Dan and his wife, Sarah, enjoying themselves despite the subdued atmosphere. They stayed until midnight before heading home, where Jake led Lisa to their bedroom. After their intimate moment, they discussed their family plans, agreeing on having 2 kids spaced 2 years apart. Lisa planned to stop birth control in February for a November baby, aligning with her hoped-for promotion. Though Jake wasn't thrilled about the wait, he understood. The following Saturday took a turn when Jake came home from work to find Lisa staring out the window, clearly troubled. She didn't acknowledge him, lost in her thoughts. He waited until after dinner to ask about her mood. They had a deal whoever cooked could relax after dinner while the other cleaned up. Lisa had cooked, so Jake cleaned the kitchen and then joined her in the family room, sensing she wasn't going to bring it up. Lisa, what is going on? It's obvious something's bothering you, Jake said gently. Is there anything I can do to help? Lisa looked at him with sorrowful eyes. There's a problem with the national pharmaceutical deal, she said. Mr. Mitchell, their president, is making unrealistic demands. If we can meet them, we might lose the contract. It could ruin everything for us. It won't ruin everything, no matter what happens. We have each other. Try not to worry too much. What's the worst-case scenario? Jake asked. You don't get it, she replied. If this deal falls apart, it could be because of me. And if I mess this up, I could lose my job. But how could it be your fault if you are not in sales? Jake asked. I can say more. I'm not supposed to talk about it outside of TDH. All I can tell you is that I didn't do anything wrong. If you didn't do anything wrong, then why would you lose your job? Jake pressed. I've said too much already. I could get into trouble just for telling you this much. Please let me handle this on my own, she insisted. Jake wanted to say more, but the look on her face told him the conversation was over. On Sunday, he hoped Lisa would feel better, but she seemed even more down. She avoided looking at him, and any attempt at conversation was met with silence. Monday morning, Jake woke up early and made breakfast, but Lisa hardly touched hers. She drank her coffee quietly and headed for a shower. Jake cleared the snow from the driveway, and when he returned inside, Lisa was already preparing to leave for work. Why are you leaving so early? It is only 6:30, Jake asked. I have important meetings to prepare for, she replied, giving him a quick kiss as she hurried out to the garage. Monday morning was their neighborhood trash collection day, so Jake had to gather all the waste baskets and take the trash out to the curb. As he was dumping the bathroom waste basket, something fell out and disappeared. He searched for a few minutes but couldn't find it. He took the trash outside, placed it in their large plastic can, and rolled it to the curb. Returning inside, he quickly scanned the kitchen again for the lost object from the bathroom but found nothing. Jake couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong. He needed to find out what was troubling Lisa, but he knew he had to be patient and gather all the facts before drawing conclusions. Acting hastily could have serious consequences, and patience had always been one of his virtues. Chapter 2. Unearthing Clues. Jake Thompson couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. Lisa's sudden secrecy and emotional distance were unlike her. He decided it was time to dig deeper, using his skills as an investigator to uncover what was truly going on. On Tuesday evening, Jake returned home from work, determined to get to the bottom of Lisa's strange behavior. He noticed her briefcase on the dining room table, slightly ajar. Normally, he respected her privacy, but the urgency of the situation compelled him to take a closer look. He opened the briefcase, finding a stack of documents and her day planner. Jake flipped through the planner, his eyes scanning the entries. Most of the notes were routine meetings, deadlines, and reminders, but a series of entries from December 6th to December 20th caught his attention. Each day was numbered, starting with 1 on December 6th and ending with 14 on December 20th. The number 14 was circled and underlined. Started, Jake muttered to himself. What had started on December 6th? His mind raced as he tried to piece together the significance of these dates. He noted several meetings with Tom Harris and Mike Brooks, along with a few entries for meetings with Mr. Mitchell, the president of National Pharmaceutical. But why the countdown? What was the importance of the 20th? Jake's thoughts were interrupted by the sound of Lisa's car pulling into the driveway. He quickly put the planner back in the briefcase and closed it, making sure everything was as he had found it. Lisa entered the house, looking exhausted. "Hey, you are home early," she said, attempting a smile. "Yeah, I finished up my work quickly today. How was your day?" Jake asked, trying to sound casual. "It was long. We have a lot going on with the National Pharmaceutical deal," Lisa replied, setting her briefcase down and heading to the kitchen. Jake followed her, watching as she poured herself a glass of water. "I noticed you've been working late a lot recently. Is everything okay?" Lisa sighed. "It's just work, Jake. There's a lot of pressure to close this deal, and Mr. Mitchell is making things difficult. I understand. Just know I am here if you need to talk," Jake said, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Lisa nodded, but her eyes remained distant. "Thanks, Jake. I appreciate it." The next morning, Jake woke up early again, determined to gather more information. As Lisa prepared for work, he decided to follow her after she left the house. He waited a few minutes after she drove off, then got into his car and trailed her at a safe distance. Lisa's car headed downtown, eventually stopping at a small cafe. Jake parked a few spaces away, watching as she entered the cafe and sat at a table near the window. Moments later, Tom Harris walked in and joined her. Jake's heart raced as he watched them through the cafe window. Tom handed Lisa a small envelope, which she quickly tucked into her purse. They spoke for a few minutes, their expressions serious, before Tom got up and left. Jake waited until Lisa finished her coffee and left the cafe. He followed her to the TDH office where she parked and went inside. Satisfied that she was at work, Jake decided to pay Tom Harris a visit. Jake drove to the TDH office, his mind racing with questions. He entered the lobby and approached the receptionist. "Hi, I am here to see Tom Harris," he said with a friendly smile. The receptionist checked her computer and then looked up. "Mr. Harris is in a meeting right now. Can I take a message? It's important. Could you let him know Jake Thompson is here?" "I'll wait," Jake insisted. The receptionist nodded and picked up the phone. After a brief conversation, she hung up and smiled. "Mr. Harris will see you now. Please follow me." Jake followed her to a conference room where Tom was seated. The receptionist closed the door behind them, leaving Jake and Tom alone. "Jake, what a surprise. What brings you here?" Tom asked, his expression a mix of curiosity and annoyance. "I need to talk to you about Lisa," Jake said, taking a seat across from him. Tom's expression hardened. "What about Lisa? She's been acting strange lately, and I think it has something to do with this national pharmaceutical deal. I saw you give her an envelope this morning." "What's going on, Tom?" Jake demanded. Tom leaned back in his chair, his eyes narrowing. "Jake, I assure you, everything related to the national pharmaceutical deal is confidential. Lisa is a valuable member of our team, and we are under a lot of pressure to close this deal. The envelope contained documents she needed for a meeting later today. That is all." Jake wasn't convinced. If everything is above board, why the secrecy? Why is Lisa so stressed and distant? It's like she's carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. Tom sighed. "I can discuss the details with you, Jake. You'll just have to trust that we are handling it." Jake felt a surge of anger but kept his composure. "I trust Lisa, Tom, but I don't trust you or Mike. Something isn't right, and I intend to find out what it is." Tom's eyes flashed with irritation. "Jake, I understand your concern for your wife, but you're crossing a line. This is company business, and it doesn't involve you." Jake stood up, leaning across the table. "It involves me if it affects my wife. Just remember, Tom, I am not someone you can easily dismiss." With that, Jake turned and left the conference room, his mind racing with more questions than answers. He needed more information, and he knew exactly where to find it. That evening, Jake waited until Lisa was asleep before he slipped out of bed and headed downstairs. He retrieved her briefcase from the dining room and carefully opened it, pulling out the planner and the documents she had received from Tom. Among the papers, he found financial statements and projections for the national pharmaceutical deal, but nothing incriminating. Jake's frustration grew as he continued to search. Then he noticed a small folded piece of paper tucked into the planner. He unfolded it and read the brief note inside. "Lisa, we need to meet privately. The situation is becoming more complicated. Contact me as soon as possible." Jake's heart pounded as he stared at the note. What could be so urgent that Tom needed a private meeting with Lisa? He knew he had to confront Lisa, but he needed more evidence. The next day, Jake decided to enlist the help of his friend Dan Riley. Dan was one of the few people he trusted completely and had worked with him on many cases. "Dan, I need your help," Jake said over the phone. "Anything for you, Jake." "What is going on?" Dan replied. "It's Elisa. I think something is going on at her work. Something serious. I need to find out what it is, but I can do it alone," Jake explained. "Meet me at the usual spot," Dan said. "We'll figure this out together." Jake met Dan at a local diner where they often discussed cases. Over coffee, Jake laid out everything he had discovered so far, including the suspicious meetings, the envelope, and the note from Tom. Dan listened intently, nodding. "This doesn't look good, Jake. If Lisa S. involved in something shady, we need to tread carefully. But if she's being coerced or manipulated, we need to get her out of it." "I agree. I need to confront her, but I need more evidence. Can you help me keep an eye on Tom and Mike?" "Maybe we can find out what they're planning," Jake suggested. "You got it. I'll see what I can dig up on my end. In the meantime, keep gathering information on Lisa. We'll get to the bottom of this," Dan assured him. Jake felt a sense of relief having Dan on his side. He knew they were up against powerful forces, but he was determined to protect his wife and uncover the truth. Returning home that evening, Jake found Lisa in the kitchen, preparing dinner. She looked up and smiled, but Jake could see the strain in her eyes. "Hey, how was your day?" she asked, trying to sound cheerful. "It was fine," Jake replied, forcing a smile. "How about you? Busy, as usual?" "Just trying to keep everything on track," Lisa said, her voice betraying her exhaustion. They ate dinner in relative silence, the tension between them palpable. After dinner, Jake decided it was time to confront Lisa, but gently. "Lisa, we need to talk," he began, watching her carefully. Lisa looked up, her expression wary. "About what?" "I know you are under a lot of pressure at work, and I can see it is taking a toll on you. I want to help, but I can't if you keep shutting me out," Jake said, his voice soft but firm. Lisa sighed, her shoulders slumping. "Jake, it's complicated. There are things I can discuss even with you. I get that, but this is affecting us, Lisa. Whatever it is, we need to face it together," Jake urged. Tears welled up in Lisa's eyes as she looked away. "I don't know if I can, Jake. It's too much." Jake reached out, taking her hand. "You can trust me, Lisa. Whatever it is, we'll get through it together." Lisa nodded, her grip tightening on his hand. "Okay, Jake, I'll try to explain, but you have to promise not to overreact." "I promise," Jake said, his heart pounding. Lisa took a deep breath and began to speak, her voice trembling. "It's the national pharmaceutical deal. Mr. Mitchell is making demands that we can meet, and Tom and Mike are putting immense pressure on me to find a solution. They were threatening my job, Jake. I didn't want to burden you with this, but I didn't know what else to do." Jake listened, his anger toward Tom and Mike growing. "Why didn't you tell me sooner? We could have figured something out together." "I was scared, Jake. I didn't want you to get involved and risk everything we've built," Lisa confessed, tears streaming down her face. "We'll figure this out, Lisa." "Together," Jake promised, pulling her into a comforting embrace. As they held each other, Jake knew this was just the beginning. He needed to gather more information, confront Tom and Mike, and protect his wife from whatever sinister forces were at play. But for now, He was determined to stand by Lisa and face whatever came their way. Together. Chapter 3. Party of Deceit. The days leading up to the TDH Christmas party were tense. Jake tried to maintain a semblance of normalcy, but the weight of the secrets he was uncovering bore heavily on him. He continued his discreet surveillance, gathering what information he could while preparing for the confrontation he knew was inevitable. The night of the party arrived. The TDH office was transformed into a festive wonderland, with twinkling lights, garlands, and a large Christmas tree dominating the room. The air was filled with the sounds of laughter, clinking glasses, and soft music playing in the background. Jake and Lisa arrived together, but the tension between them was palpable. As they entered the room, Jake immediately noticed Tom Harris and Mike Brooks standing by the bar, deep in conversation. Lisa squeezed his hand, her eyes pleading with him to stay calm. "Remember, Jake, we're here to celebrate," she whispered. Jake nodded, forcing a smile. "I know. Let's just get through this." They mingled with Lisa-S colleagues, exchanging pleasantries and making small talk. But Jake-S mind was elsewhere, constantly scanning the room, looking for any signs of deceit. He couldn't shake the feeling that something significant was about to happen. Tom approached them, his face a mask of politeness. "Jake, Lisa, glad you could make it. Enjoying the party so far?" "It's lovely," Lisa replied, her voice strained. "You did a great job organizing everything, Tom." Tom's eyes flicked to Jake, a hint of challenge in his gaze. "Jake, how about a drink? Let's catch up." Jake nodded, following Tom to the bar. As they stood side by side, Tom ordered 2 whiskeys and handed one to Jake. "To the holidays," Tom said, raising his glass. "To the holidays?" Jake echoed, taking a sip. He felt the burn of the whiskey, but his mind was focused on the conversation. "So, Jake, how is everything going with you?" Tom asked, his tone casual. "Busy as always," Jake replied. "And you? How is the national pharmaceutical deal coming along?" Thomas' expression tightened slightly. "It is progressing. We've had some hurdles, but nothing we can handle." Jake decided to press further. "Lisa-S been under a lot of pressure because of it. I hope everything S above board." Tom's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Of course, Jake. Everything is under control. We appreciate Lisa-S hard work and dedication." Jake nodded, his suspicions confirmed. He knew Tom was hiding something, but he needed more proof. As they returned to the main room, Jake's eyes met Lisa-S. She looked anxious, her gaze flicking between him and Tom. The evening wore on, and the tension only increased. Jake watched as Lisa interacted with her colleagues, her forced smiles and strained laughter a stark contrast to her usual demeanor. He couldn't stand seeing her like this, and he knew he had to do something. As the clock approached 10:00 p.m., the atmosphere shifted. The guests were growing more relaxed, their conversations louder and more animated. Jake noticed Mike Brooks and Mr. Mitchell huddled together, speaking in low tones. Lisa was nowhere to be seen. His heart pounded as he scanned the room, searching for her. He found her near the entrance to a hallway that led to the private meeting rooms. She was speaking with Tom, her expression a mix of fear and determination. Jake's stomach churned as he realized what was happening. Determined not to lose control, Jake took a deep breath and approached them. "Lisa, can I talk to you for a moment?" Tom's eyes narrowed, but he stepped back, allowing Jake to lead Lisa away. They moved to a quieter corner of the room, away from prying eyes and ears. "Jake, what is wrong?" Lisa asked, her voice trembling. "I could ask you the same thing," Jake replied, his voice low. "What is going on, Lisa? Why were you talking to Tom in the hallway?" Lisa's eyes filled with tears. "Jake, I didn't want you to find out like this. There is so much at stake." "Then tell me," Jake urged. "I need to know the truth." Lisa took a deep breath, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. "Mr. Mitchell is here to finalize the national pharmaceutical deal. Tom and Mike have been pressuring me to ensure everything goes smoothly. They've made some inappropriate demands, and I've been trying to handle it without involving you. Inappropriate demands? Jake's anger flared. What kind of demands? Lisa looked away, her voice barely a whisper. They want me to entertain Mr. Mitchell after the party. They think it will secure the deal. Jake's vision blurred with rage. Entertain? You mean? Lisa nodded, tears streaming down her face. I've been trying to find a way out, but they've threatened my job. I didn't know what to do. Jake clenched his fists, struggling to contain his fury. You should have told me sooner. We could have dealt with this together. I know, Jake. I am sorry, Lisa sobbed. I was scared. I didn't want you to get hurt. Jake pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. We'll figure this out, Lisa. Together. He kissed her forehead, his mind racing. He needed to confront Tom and Mike, but he had to be smart about it. He couldn't afford to lose his temper and make things worse. Stay here, Jake said, pulling back slightly. I need to handle this. Lisa nodded, her eyes wide with fear. Be careful, Jake. Jake strode across the room, his eyes locked on Tom and Mike. They were standing near the bar, laughing and clinking their glasses. The sight of their smug faces fueled his determination. Tom, Mike, we need to talk, Jake said, his voice cold and hard. Tom raised an eyebrow. What's the matter, Jake? You know damn well what's the matter, Jake replied, his anger barely contained. I know about your little plan with Mr. Mitchell. It ends now. Mike's smile faded, his expression turning serious. Jake, you are overstepping. No, you are, Jake shot back. You've been putting my wife in an impossible position, and I want to stand for it. Tom's eyes flashed with anger. You are making a scene, Jake. This isn't the place. Jake took a step closer, his voice low and dangerous. I don't care. You are going to leave Lisa out of this deal, or I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of people you really are. Mike glanced around, noticing the curious looks from the other guests. Let's take this outside, Jake. We don't need to cause a scene. Jake nodded, following Tom and Mike out to the patio. The cold night air hit him, but he barely noticed. His focus was solely on the men in front of him. All right, Jake, Tom said, his voice steady. What do you want? I want you to stop using my wife as a bargaining chip, Jake said, his voice shaking with rage. If you don't, I'll expose everything. The threats, the coercion, all of it. Tom sneered. And what proof do you have? It's your word against ours. Jake smiled grimly. I have enough to make your lives very difficult, and trust me, I will. Mike's face darkened. You're making a big mistake, Jake. No, the mistake was thinking you could manipulate my wife and get away with it, Jake replied. This ends now. Tom and Mike exchanged a look, realizing they were cornered. Fine, Jake, Tom said, his voice cold. We'll back off. But this isn't over. It is for you, Jake said, turning to leave. Stay away from Lisa or you'll regret it. He walked back into the party, his heart pounding with a mix of anger and relief. He found Lisa, who was anxiously waiting for him. Is it over? She asked, her voice shaking. Jake nodded, pulling her into his arms. Yes, it is over. They want to bother you again. Lisa hugged him tightly, her tears soaking his shirt. Thank you, Jake. I don't know what I'd do without you. You don't have to worry about that, Jake said, kissing her hair. We are in this together no matter what. As they held each other, Jake knew this was only the beginning. He had protected Lisa tonight, but the fight was far from over. He needed to gather more evidence, expose Tom and Mike, and ensure that Lisa was safe from their manipulations. But for now, he was content to hold his wife and take solace in the fact that they had each other. The Christmas party continued around them, the festive atmosphere a stark contrast to the turmoil they had just endured. But Jake felt a renewed sense of determination. He would not rest until he had ensured their safety and uncovered the full extent of the conspiracy. Together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead, and Jake vowed to protect Lisa at all costs. Chapter 4. Truth Unveiled. The days following the Christmas party were a whirlwind of tension and anticipation. Jake knew he had rattled Tom and Mike, but he needed to do more to protect Lisa and bring the full extent of their manipulations to light. He enlisted Dan Riley's help to gather more evidence, while continuing to support Lisa through the stress and uncertainty. One morning, as Jake was reviewing his notes from the past few days, his phone rang. It was Dan. "Jake, you need to come to the office." "I found something," Dan said, his voice urgent. "I'll be right there," Jake replied, grabbing his coat and heading out the door. He arrived at Dan's office a short while later, his mind racing with possibilities. Dan greeted him with a grim expression. "Jake, I managed to get some information on Tom and Mike. It's worse than we thought." Jake took a seat, leaning forward. "What did you find?" Dan handed him a stack of documents. "I got these from a source inside TDH. Tom and Mike have been involved in several shady deals using similar tactics to the one they tried with Lisa. They've been manipulating employees, coercing them into compromising situations to secure contracts." Jake's eyes widened as he scanned the documents. "This is incredible. If we can prove this, we can take them down for good." "There is more," Dan said, pulling out a recording device. "I got this from a contact at National Pharmaceutical. It is a recording of Tom and Mike discussing their plans. They talk about using Lisa to secure the deal and mention other employees they've manipulated." Jake listened to the recording, his anger boiling over as he heard Tom and Mike's callous discussions. "This is exactly what we need. With this, we can expose them." "We need to be careful, Jake. They are powerful and they want to go down without a fight," Dan cautioned. "I know, but we have to do this. For Lisa and for everyone else they've hurt," Jake said, determination in his voice. They spent the rest of the day strategizing, planning their next moves carefully. Jake knew he had to confront Lisa with the evidence, but he wanted to do it gently. That evening, he returned home, finding Lisa in the living room, looking exhausted. "Lisa, we need to talk," Jake said, sitting beside her. She looked at him, her eyes weary. "What is it, Jake?" "I've been working with Dan to gather more evidence against Tom and Mike. We found proof of their manipulations, not just with you, but with other employees as well," Jake explained, handing her the documents. Lisa's hands trembled as she read through the papers, her face paling. "I can't believe this. How could they do this to so many people? They are ruthless, Lisa, but we have enough evidence to expose them." "We need to take this to the authorities," Jake said gently. Lisa nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "I'll do whatever it takes to bring them down. They need to be stopped." Jake pulled her into a comforting embrace. "We'll do this together. You're not alone." The next day, Jake and Lisa met with Dan and his contacts at the FBI. They laid out all the evidence they had gathered, including the recording and the documents. Special Agent Paul Carter listened intently, his expression serious. "This is significant," Agent Carter said, reviewing the materials. "We've been investigating TDH for some time, but this gives us the leverage we need. We'll launch a full investigation and bring charges against Tom and Mike." "Thank you, Agent Carter," Jake said, relief washing over him. "We'll do whatever we can to help. We'll need statements from both of you, and we'll likely call you as witnesses once the case goes to court," Agent Carter explained. "Of course. We'll be ready," Lisa said, her voice steady. Over the next few weeks, the investigation gained momentum. The FBI conducted raids on TDH offices, seizing documents and interviewing employees. The media caught wind of the scandal, and soon, news outlets were reporting on the corruption and manipulation within the company. Jake and Lisa watched the coverage, feeling a mix of vindication and anxiety. One evening, as they sat together in their living room, Jake's phone rang. It was Agent Carter. "Jake, we've made significant progress. Tom and Mike have been arrested, and we've gathered enough evidence to charge them with multiple counts of fraud, coercion, and conspiracy," Agent Carter said. "That is great news," Jake replied, relief flooding his voice. "What happens next? They'll face a trial, and given the evidence, we are confident they'll be convicted. We'll need your testimonies. But I wanted to let you know that the worst is over," Agent Carter explained. "Thank you, Agent Carter." "We'll be ready," Jake said, ending the call and turning to Lisa. "It's almost over. They've been arrested." Lisa sighed, a weight lifting from her shoulders. "I can't believe it. After everything, it's finally happening." Jake held her close. "We did it, Lisa. We stood up to them, and we won." The days leading up to the trial were a mix of relief and anxiety. Jake and Lisa prepared their testimonies, working closely with the FBI to ensure they were ready for the courtroom. They knew the trial would be grueling, but they were determined to see it through. Finally, the day of the trial arrived. The courtroom was packed with reporters, lawyers, and spectators eager to see justice served. Jake and Lisa sat together, their hands intertwined, as they watched Tom and Mike enter the courtroom, flanked by their legal team. The trial began with opening statements from both sides. The prosecution laid out the evidence, painting a damning picture of Tom and Mike's corrupt practices. The defense tried to discredit the witnesses and evidence, but the sheer volume of proof was overwhelming. Jake was called to the stand first. He recounted his experiences, detailing the threats and manipulations he and Lisa had faced. His voice was steady, his resolve unwavering. "Mr. Thompson, can you tell us about the impact these actions had on you and your wife?" the prosecutor asked. Jake took a deep breath. "It was devastating. We were living in constant fear, unsure of what would happen next. The stress took a toll on our relationship, our health, and our peace of mind. But we decided to fight back because we knew we couldn't let them get away with it." The prosecutor nodded. "Thank you, Mr. Thompson." Lisa was called to the stand next. She detailed her experiences, her voice trembling at times but never breaking. She spoke of the pressure, the threats, and the fear she had endured, but also of the determination she felt to see justice served. "Mrs. Thompson, why did you decide to come forward?" the prosecutor asked. Lisa glanced at Jake, drawing strength from his presence. "Because it was the right thing to do. No one should have to go through what we did. I wanted to make sure this didn't happen to anyone else." The trial continued for several days, with witness after witness testifying to the corruption and coercion they had faced. The evidence was overwhelming, and it became clear that Tom and Mike's actions were part of a larger pattern of abuse. Finally, the jury reached a verdict. Jake and Lisa sat together, holding their breath as the foreman stood to announce the decision. On the charges of fraud, coercion, and conspiracy, we find the defendants guilty. A wave of relief washed over Jake and Lisa as the courtroom erupted in murmurs. Justice had been served. Tom and Mike were led away in handcuffs, their expressions grim. Outside the courthouse, Jake and Lisa were met with a barrage of reporters. They answered questions briefly, expressing their relief and gratitude to the FBI and everyone who had supported them. As they walked away from the courthouse, Jake felt a sense of closure. They had faced a daunting challenge and emerged victorious. But more than that, they had found strength in each other, reinforcing the bond they shared. "Jake, thank you for standing by me," Lisa said, her eyes filled with gratitude. "We are a team, Lisa." "We always will be," Jake replied, squeezing her hand. As they drove home, Jake felt a renewed sense of hope. They had faced darkness and come out stronger, and together they would face whatever the future held. Chapter 5. Jake's Justice. The trial's conclusion brought a sense of relief and accomplishment, but Jake knew that justice wasn't fully served until the corrupt practices were entirely eradicated from TDH. Despite Tom and Mike's arrests, there were still layers of deceit to uncover, and more players involved in the scandal. Jake and Lisa took a few days to recuperate, enjoying the newfound peace that had eluded them for so long. However, Jake's investigator instincts wouldn't let him rest completely. He was determined to ensure that the company underwent a thorough cleansing, and he suspected that Tom and Mike were only the tip of the iceberg. One morning, while Jake and Lisa were having breakfast, his phone buzzed with a message from Dan Riley. It was a simple but urgent note: "Need to meet. Found something big." Jake showed Lisa the message. "Dan got something. I need to go." Lisa nodded, concern in her eyes. "Be careful, Jake. We have been through enough already." "I will," Jake assured her, kissing her forehead before heading out. Jake arrived at Dan's office, finding his friend pacing with a stack of documents in his hand. "Jake, you want to believe this," Dan said, his voice tense. "What is it?" Jake asked, taking a seat. Dan spread the documents on the table. "I've been digging through the files we got from the FBI raid. It turns out Tom and Mike weren't working alone. There is a whole network within TDH involved in this corruption, and it goes higher up than we thought." Jake scanned the documents, his anger growing as he read. "This is massive. We need to take this to the authorities." "We do, But we need to be smart about it, Dan cautioned. These people are powerful, and they all do anything to protect themselves. Jake nodded, formulating a plan. We need more evidence. If we can expose the entire network, we can ensure they were all brought to justice. Over the next few weeks, Jake and Dan worked tirelessly, gathering more information and building a comprehensive case. They contacted other employees who had been coerced or manipulated, collecting their testimonies and corroborating the evidence they already had. One evening, as Jake and Lisa were reviewing the latest findings, Jake's phone rang. It was a number he didn't recognize. He answered cautiously. "Jake Thompson?" The voice on the other end asked. "Yes, who is this?" Jake replied. "This is Rachel Myers. I used to work at TDH. I heard about the trial and what you and your wife did. I think I can help you." Jake's interest piqued. "Go on. I have information on the higher-ups involved in the corruption. I've been gathering evidence for years, but I was too scared to come forward. If you are willing to meet, I can give you everything I have," Rachel explained. Jake exchanged a look with Lisa, who nodded encouragingly. "Okay, Rachel, let's meet. When and where?" They arranged to meet at a quiet cafe the next day. Jake and Dan arrived early, scanning the area to ensure it was safe. Rachel arrived shortly after, a nervous but determined look on her face. "Thank you for meeting with us, Rachel," Jake said as they sat down. Rachel nodded, glancing around. "I've been scared for so long, but I can stay silent anymore." "Here," she said, handing them a flash drive. "This contains emails, documents, and recordings. It proves the involvement of several top executives at TDH. Jake and Dan reviewed the contents of the flash drive, their eyes widening at the extent of the corruption. "This is incredible, Rachel. With this, we can bring down the entire network." "I hope so," Rachel said, her voice shaking. "These people have ruined lives. They need to be stopped. We'll make sure of it," Jake promised. "Thank you for your courage." Returning home, Jake and Dan immediately contacted Agent Carter, arranging a meeting to hand over the new evidence. The FBI was eager to receive the information, recognizing its potential to dismantle the corrupt network within TDH. As they waited for the authorities to take action, Jake and Lisa tried to resume a semblance of normal life, but the looming threat of retaliation from the powerful individuals they were exposing kept them on edge. One evening, as they were having dinner, Jake's phone buzzed with a message from Agent Carter, arrests made. "Come to the office tomorrow for debrief." Jake showed Lisa the message, a sense of relief washing over him. "They've made more arrests. We are getting closer." The next day, Jake and Lisa met with Agent Carter at the FBI office. He greeted them with a firm handshake. "Thanks to your efforts and Rachel's testimony, we've arrested several top executives at TDH. This case is bigger than we anticipated, and your help has been invaluable." "We're just glad to see justice being served," Jake replied. "There is still work to be done, but this is a significant step forward. We'll need you to testify again, but I believe we are nearing the end," Agent Carter said. "We'll be ready," Lisa said, her voice resolute. The news of the additional arrests spread quickly, and the media frenzy reignited. Jake and Lisa found themselves back in the spotlight, their story serving as a beacon of hope for others who had suffered under similar corrupt practices. As the new trial date approached, Jake and Lisa prepared themselves mentally and emotionally. They knew this would be the final push to ensure that everyone involved was held accountable. The courtroom was packed once again, with reporters and spectators eager to see the outcome. Jake and Lisa took the stand, recounting their experiences and presenting the new evidence. Rachel Myers also testified, her bravery inspiring others to come forward. The prosecution's case was airtight, and the defense struggled to counter the overwhelming evidence. After several days of intense testimony and cross-examination, the jury reached a verdict. On the charges of fraud, coercion, and conspiracy, we find the defendants guilty. The courtroom erupted in murmurs, and Jake and Lisa felt a profound sense of relief. They had faced down the corrupt network and emerged victorious. Outside the courthouse, they were met with a throng of reporters. Jake addressed them briefly, expressing gratitude to the FBI, their legal team, and everyone who had supported them. "We stood up against corruption, and we won. This is a victory for everyone who believes in justice and integrity," Jake said. his voice strong and clear. As they walked away from the courthouse, hand in hand, Jake felt a renewed sense of hope and purpose. They had faced unimaginable challenges and emerged stronger. Now, they could finally focus on rebuilding their lives and looking towards the future. In the following days, Jake and Lisa returned to a quieter, more peaceful existence. The media attention gradually waned, and they found solace in the simple pleasures of daily life. They spent time with friends and family, cherishing the support and love that had helped them through their ordeal. One evening, as they sat on their porch watching the sunset, Lisa turned to Jake, a smile on her face. "We did it, Jake. We really did it." Jake smiled back, squeezing her hand. "Yes, we did. And we were stronger for it." They sat in comfortable silence, the weight of the past lifting from their shoulders. They had faced darkness and emerged into the light, ready to embrace the future together. As the stars began to twinkle in the sky, Jake felt a profound sense of peace. They had fought for justice, protected each other, and found strength in their love. And now, they were ready to face whatever the future held, side by side. The journey had been long and arduous, but it had brought them closer and made them stronger. Together, they would continue to build a life filled with love, trust, and unwavering support. And no matter what challenges lay ahead, Jake knew they would face them together, as a team. Their story was far from over, but this chapter had reached a satisfying conclusion. They had triumphed over adversity and emerged victorious. And as they looked towards the horizon, they knew that whatever came next, they would face it together, hand in hand. Chapter 6. Aftermath and Rebuilding. The aftermath of the trial left Jake and Lisa in a state of mixed emotions. They were relieved that justice had been served, but the toll it had taken on their lives was undeniable. The spotlight had moved on, and the constant media attention began to fade, leaving them with the task of picking up the pieces and rebuilding their lives. Jake returned to his work as an investigator, but with a renewed sense of purpose. He was more determined than ever to root out corruption and bring justice to those who had been wronged. Lisa, too, found a new sense of clarity in her professional life. She decided to leave TDH and pursue a career that aligned more closely with her values. One morning, as Jake was getting ready for work, Lisa approached him with a thoughtful expression. "Jake, I've been thinking, I want to do something meaningful with my experience. Maybe start a nonprofit to help whistleblowers and victims of corporate corruption." Jake smiled, feeling a surge of pride. "That's a fantastic idea, Lisa. You'd be perfect for it." "Do you think so?" she asked, her eyes searching his for reassurance. "I know so," Jake replied, kissing her forehead. "You've been through so much, and you have come out stronger. You can use that strength to help others." Encouraged by Jake's support, Lisa began working on her new project. She reached out to former colleagues, legal experts, and advocacy groups, building a network of allies who shared her vision. The process was challenging, but Lisa's determination and passion kept her going. Meanwhile, Jake continued to work closely with Dan Riley, taking on new cases and using the skills he had honed during the ordeal with TDH. They built a reputation for integrity and effectiveness, attracting clients who appreciated their commitment to justice. One day, as Jake and Dan were reviewing a particularly complex case, Dan looked up with a grin. "You know, Jake, we make a pretty good team." Jake chuckled. "Yeah, we do. And we've been through a lot together. I wouldn't have it any other way." Their bond had strengthened through the trials they faced, and they both knew they could rely on each other no matter what challenges lay ahead. As Lisa's nonprofit began to take shape, she organized a launch event to raise awareness and gather support. Jake helped her with the preparations, proud of her accomplishments and eager to see her succeed. The event was held in a small community center, decorated with posters and banners highlighting the importance of protecting whistleblowers and fighting corporate corruption. Friends, family, and supporters gathered, filling the room with a sense of camaraderie and hope. Lisa stood at the front, her voice steady and confident as she addressed the crowd. "Thank you all for being here. This journey has been incredibly challenging, but it has also shown me the power of resilience and the importance of standing up for what is right. Together, we can create a world where justice prevails and those who speak out are protected and supported." The applause that followed was heartfelt and enthusiastic, and Jake felt a swell of pride as he watched Lisa shine. She had found her calling, and he was honored to stand by her side. As the evening progressed, Jake mingled with the guests, many of whom expressed their admiration for Lisa and their gratitude for the work she was doing. He felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that they were making a positive impact. Later that night, as they returned home, Lisa turned to Jake with a smile. "Thank you for believing in me, Jake. I couldn't have done this without you." "You were amazing, Lisa. I always knew you had it in you," Jake replied, pulling her into a hug. "We've come a long way, and I am so proud of what we've achieved together." Their lives had changed dramatically since the ordeal with TDH, but they had emerged stronger, more united, and more determined than ever to make a difference. One sunny afternoon, Jake received a call from Special Agent Paul Carter. "Jake, I wanted to give you an update. Thanks to the evidence you and Lisa provided, we have been able to launch several new investigations into corporate corruption. Your efforts have made a significant impact." "That is great to hear, Agent Carter," Jake replied. "We are just glad we could help. You've done more than help. You've set a precedent for how these cases should be handled." "Keep up the good work, Jake. The world needs more people like you and Lisa," Agent Carter said before ending the call. Jake hung up, feeling a sense of satisfaction. The fight against corruption was far from over, but knowing that their efforts had sparked positive change was immensely gratifying. As Jake and Lisa continued to build their lives and careers, they never lost sight of the values that had guided them through their darkest days. They remained committed to justice, integrity, and supporting those who needed it most. One evening, as they sat on their porch, watching the sunset, Lisa turned to Jake with a thoughtful expression. "You know, Jake, I have been thinking about our future. Maybe it is time we considered starting a family." Jake smiled, his heart swelling with love. "I'd like that, Lisa. I think we are ready." The journey they had been on had brought them closer together, and they knew they were stronger as a team. They had faced adversity and come out on the other side, ready to embrace whatever the future held. In the months that followed, Lisa's nonprofit grew, gaining recognition and support from across the country. Jake and Dan took on more challenging cases, making a name for themselves as relentless advocates for justice. Their home was filled with laughter and love, a testament to the strength of their relationship and the resilience of their spirits. They had built a life they were proud of, and they knew that together they could face any challenge. As they looked towards the horizon, hand in hand, they felt a profound sense of peace and fulfillment. They had fought for what was right, stood by each other through thick and thin, and emerged stronger than ever. Their story was far from over, but they were ready for whatever came next. Together, they would continue to build a future filled with love, hope, and unwavering determination. And no matter what challenges lay ahead, they knew they would face them together, as a team. Chapter 7. A New Dawn. The sun rose over Indianapolis, casting a golden hue over the city. Jake and Lisa Thompson stood in their backyard, savoring the tranquil morning. They had come a long way since the dark days of the TDH scandal, and now, a sense of peace and accomplishment filled their lives. Lisa's nonprofit, Justice Advocates, had flourished beyond their wildest dreams. With a dedicated team and a growing network of supporters, they had already helped numerous whistleblowers and victims of corporate corruption. The organization had become a beacon of hope for those seeking justice. Jake, too, found new purpose in his work. He and Dan Riley had built a formidable investigative firm, Thompson Riley Investigations, specializing in uncovering corporate fraud and corruption. Their reputation for integrity and effectiveness attracted clients from all over the country. One crisp autumn morning, Jake received a call that would change their lives once again. It was from a major tech company, Skywave Technologies, based in Silicon Valley. They were facing a potential scandal involving insider trading and needed Jake's expertise. "Jake, this could be a huge opportunity for us," Dan said, excitement in his voice. "I agree," Jake replied, "but it means relocating to California. I need to discuss this with Lisa." That evening, Jake and Lisa sat on their porch, wrapped in warm blankets and sipping hot cocoa. The air was filled with the earthy scent of fallen leaves, and the setting sun painted the sky in shades of orange and pink. "Lisa, I got a call from Skywave Technologies. They want us to investigate a potential insider trading scandal," Jake began. Lisa's eyes widened. "That sounds like a big case. What is the catch?" "They need us to relocate to Silicon Valley. It is a huge opportunity, but it means leaving Indianapolis," Jake explained. Lisa was silent for a moment, gazing at the horizon. "It is a big decision, Jake. But I think we are ready for a new adventure." "Are you sure?" Jake asked, his voice filled with concern. Lisa smiled, squeezing his hand. "Absolutely. We have built something amazing here, but I feel like this is the next step for us. Besides, justice advocates can expand to the West Coast. There are plenty of people there who need our help." Jake felt a surge of gratitude and love for his wife. "You are incredible, Lisa. I don't know what I'd do without you." "Good thing you don't have to find out," she teased, leaning in for a kiss. The decision was made. Over the next few weeks, they prepared for the move. It was a bittersweet process, saying goodbye to friends and family, but they were excited about the opportunities that awaited them in California. Their new home in Silicon Valley was a charming house with a spacious yard, perfect for the fresh start they both craved. Jake and Lisa quickly settled into their new routines, with Jake diving into the Skywave investigation and Lisa expanding justice advocates' reach. The Skywave case proved to be as complex and challenging as they had anticipated. Jake and Dan uncovered a web of deceit involving several high-ranking executives. The investigation required all their skills and resources, but they were determined to see it through. One evening, as Jake was reviewing documents in his home office, Lisa walked in, a thoughtful expression on her face. "Jake, I've been thinking about something." Jake looked up, intrigued. "What is it?" "I want to adopt a child," Lisa said, her voice filled with determination. Jake was momentarily stunned. They had talked about starting a family, but the idea of adoption had never come up. "Adopt? Are you sure?" "Yes," Lisa replied. "There are so many children out there who need a loving home. We have so much to give, and I think we were ready for this." Jake felt a warmth spread through his chest. "I think it's a wonderful idea. Let's do it." They began the adoption process, navigating the maze of paperwork and interviews with unwavering resolve. It was a challenging journey, but their shared commitment made it all worthwhile. Meanwhile, the Skywave investigation reached a critical point. Jake and Dan had gathered enough evidence to confront the company's board of directors. They scheduled a meeting to present their findings, knowing it would be a turning point in their careers. The day of the meeting arrived, and Jake stood before the Skywave board, presenting the evidence with confidence and clarity. The board members listened intently, their expressions ranging from shock to anger. "Mr. Thompson, this is serious," the chairman said, his voice grave. "What do you propose we do?" Jake took a deep breath. "We need to take immediate action. Those involved in the scandal must be held accountable, and we need to implement stricter oversight to prevent this from happening again." The board members nodded in agreement, recognizing the necessity of Jake's recommendations. The meeting concluded with a plan to address the corruption and restore the company's integrity. As Jake and Dan left the Skywave headquarters, they felt a sense of triumph. "We did it, Jake," Dan said, clapping him on the back. "This is going to make a huge difference." "It sure is," Jake replied, a smile spreading across his face. "And we are just getting started." Back at home, Jake found Lisa in the living room, surrounded by adoption brochures and information packets. She looked up, her eyes shining with excitement. "How did it go?" "Better than I could have hoped," Jake said, pulling her into a hug. "We are making a real difference, Lisa, and soon we'll be making a difference in a child's life," Lisa added, her voice filled with emotion. Months passed, and their adoption journey brought them closer together. They faced setbacks and challenges, but their determination never wavered. Finally, they received the news they had been waiting for. A match had been found. The day they met their daughter, Emily, was one they would never forget. She was a bright, energetic 6-year-old with sparkling eyes and a shy smile. From the moment they saw her, Jake and Lisa knew she was meant to be part of their family. Bringing Emily home was a joyous occasion. They decorated her room, filled it with toys and books, and showered her with love and affection. Emily quickly adapted to her new life, and the bond between them grew stronger every day. One evening, as they sat together reading a bedtime story, Emily looked up at Jake and Lisa, her eyes filled with wonder. "Thank you for choosing me," she whispered. Tears welled up in Lisa's eyes. "We're the lucky ones, Emily. You've brought so much joy into our lives." Jake nodded, his heart full. "We love you more than anything, Emily. You are our precious girl." As they tucked Emily into bed and kissed her goodnight, Jake and Lisa felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Their journey had taken them through trials and triumphs, but it had ultimately led them to this moment, a family united by love and hope. Their lives in California were filled with new adventures and opportunities. Jake and Dan continued to take on high-profile cases, while Lisa's nonprofit expanded its reach, helping countless individuals find justice and support. Through it all, their love for each other and their commitment to making a difference remained unwavering. They had faced darkness and emerged into the light, stronger and more united than ever. And as they looked towards the future, they knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together as a family. Their story was one of resilience, love, and unwavering determination. It was a testament to the power of standing up for what is right and the strength that comes from facing adversity together. As the sun set over their new home, casting a warm glow over the landscape, Jake and Lisa stood hand in hand, watching Emily play in the yard. They had built a life filled with love, hope, and endless possibilities. And they knew that whatever came next, they would face it together, with hearts full of love and a future bright with promise.